I need to tell someone what I did, and you're going to think I'm terrible, but there's something about being sexually frustrated in a loving relationship that nobody talks about. Everyone wants to paint me as the villain here, the woman who crushed her husband's confidence with careless words, but the truth is I'd been silently suffering for 3 years before that night. 3 years of the same predictable routine, the same missionary position, the same 5-minute duration, the same empty feeling afterward while he rolled over satisfied, and I stared at the ceiling wondering if this was really it for the rest of my life. The worst part isn't that I called him boring in bed. The worst part is what I'd been doing behind his back for months before that conversation, and how his current silent treatment is actually forcing me to confront something about myself I've been running from since we met. If I don't tell this whole story, you'll just see me as another ungrateful wife who doesn't appreciate her decent husband. But once you know what I know about how we got here, you'll understand why his weaponized respect is driving me absolutely insane. This isn't just about sex. It's about the fact that I've built my entire marriage on a foundation of lies about who I am and what I need, and now that foundation is crumbling and I don't know how to stop it. I'm going to tell you everything, including the online communities I joined and the conversations I had with other men. And the part that makes me look worst, I'm saving that for when you understand just how desperate I'd become. Because you need to know what 3 years of sexual disappointment does to a person before you judge what I did next. My husband James is, objectively speaking, a wonderful man. He's kind, financially stable, emotionally available in every area except this one, and genuinely believes he's a considerate lover. When we were dating, I thought the sex was just okay because we were still getting to know each other's bodies. I told myself it would get better. I read articles about how sexual chemistry develops over time. I bought lingerie thinking maybe I needed to initiate differently. I suggested we watch educational videos together, which he agreed to once and then never mentioned again. Everyone who knows us thinks we have the perfect marriage. We don't fight about money. We make each other laugh. We have the same values about family and future. My friends literally say they're jealous of how attentive James is, how he remembers little things, how he still brings me coffee in bed on weekends. And he does. He's genuinely thoughtful in every single way except the one that happens in the dark. The thing nobody tells you about sexual incompatibility is how it creeps into everything else. How you start feeling irritated when he's being sweet because you know that nighttime routine is coming. How you begin staying up later, pretending to be absorbed in your phone, hoping he'll fall asleep first. How you start scheduling things, unconsciously, to avoid being alone together in the bedroom when you're both awake and available. I started researching about 6 months before everything exploded. Just innocent stuff at first. Articles about how to talk to your partner about sex, how to introduce novelty, how to express needs without hurting feelings. But then I stumbled into forums, Reddit communities, places where women talked openly about their sexual frustrations. And God, it was like finding water in a desert. These women understood. They knew exactly what it felt like to love someone deeply while feeling completely unseen in this one crucial area. They shared stories that could have been mine. The husband who finishes in minutes and thinks he's done great. The complete lack of foreplay beyond some perfunctory touching. The confusion when you try to communicate because he genuinely believes everything's fine. I created an anonymous account. Just to read it first, I told myself. Just to feel less alone, but reading wasn't enough. I started commenting, sharing my own experiences, getting validation from strangers that yes, this was a real problem. No, I wasn't being shallow or ungrateful. One comment led to another. Then someone sent me a private message, just commiserating at first. Then another person, then another. I justified it by telling myself it was therapeutic. I wasn't physically cheating. I wasn't even sharing identifying details. I was just talking to people who understood what I was going through. But here's what I knew even then, in the back of my mind, where I shoved all the uncomfortable truths, I was getting an emotional and mental intimacy from these conversations that I should have been fighting to build with James. Some of these conversations got flirty. Not explicitly sexual at first, just playful in a way that made me feel seen as a sexual being again. There was this one guy, Marcus was his username, who seemed to really get it. He was in a similar situation with his wife. We started messaging regularly, and the conversations shifted from complaining about our partners to imagining what we'd do differently if we were with someone who actually understood. I knew it was wrong. I knew it the whole time. But it felt so good to be wanted in that way, to have someone talk to me like I was desirable, like sex with me would be an adventure rather than a scheduled maintenance task. This went on for 4 months. 4 months of secret conversations, of deleting message histories, of feeling alive in a way I hadn't felt in years while simultaneously feeling guilty and ashamed. The cognitive dissonance was exhausting. I'd be extra nice to James during the day to compensate for what I was doing at night on my phone. I'd initiate sex more frequently, hoping that would somehow absolve me, even though the sex was still the same disappointing routine, and I'd end up finishing the job myself in the bathroom afterward. Just when I thought I could maintain this bizarre double life indefinitely, James surprised me. He'd been planning this elaborate anniversary dinner for weeks without telling me, pulled out all the stops, expensive restaurant, new suit, the works. And he was so proud of himself, so pleased with how happy I looked, and all I could think about was how Marcus had messaged me earlier that day describing in detail what he'd do to me if we ever met. The guilt hit me like a truck during that dinner. Here was this good man, trying so hard in the ways he knew how, and I was betraying him every single night with my phone conversations. I made a decision right there. I would end the online stuff. I would commit fully to this marriage, but I had to be honest with James about the sex. Not about the messages, God no, but about what I needed to change in our bedroom. I thought I was being mature. I thought communication was the answer, like all the advice columns say. I planned to bring it up gently after our anniversary celebration when we got home, when the moment felt right. But James had his own plans for after dinner. He'd booked a hotel room, another surprise, and he was so excited about it. And the sex was exactly what it always was. Missionary position, minimal foreplay, him finishing quickly and then immediately cuddling me like we just had some profound bonding experience. And I snapped. I didn't yell or get mean, at least not intentionally. But when he said all satisfied and drowsy, that was great, wasn't it? Something in me just broke. I said, James, we need to talk about our sex life. He went still. I could feel his whole body tense. What about it? And here's where I made my catastrophic mistake. Instead of being gentle, instead of using I feel statements like I'd planned, 3 years of frustration just poured out. I told him the sex was boring. I told him it had always been boring. I told him I'd been faking enthusiasm for our entire relationship. I told him I needed more variety, more passion, more effort, more everything. I watched his face shut down in real time. He pulled away from me physically, got out of the bed, started getting dressed. I tried to backtrack to soften it, but the damage was done. He said, very quietly, I wish you told me before I spent all this money trying to make tonight special. We drove home in complete silence. I kept trying to start the conversation again to explain better, but he just said he needed time to process. That was 4 months ago. Here's what processing has looked like. James has not touched me once since that night. Not sexually, not intimately, barely even casually. If I brush against him, he moves away. If I try to initiate any physical contact beyond the most platonic hug, he steps back and says, I'm respecting your opinion about our physical relationship. At first, I thought he needed space and would come around, but it's become his weapon of choice. I tried to apologize, to explain that I didn't mean it the way it came out, that I wanted to work on things together. He said, you were very clear that you find me boring in bed. I don't want to bore you anymore, so I won't impose on you. The crazy thing is, he's still perfect in every other way. He still brings me coffee, still asks about my day, still does his share of housework and plans date nights. But there's this wall now, this untouchable barrier, and every time I try to address it, he throws my own words back at me with this veneer of false respect. I'm just honoring your needs, he says. You said you needed something different. I'm giving you space to figure out what that is. My friends think I should just give him more time. They say he's hurt and he'll come around. But they don't know what I know. They don't see how calculated this is, how he's punishing me while maintaining plausible deniability. He's turned my moment of honesty into a weapon, and the worst part is I can't even really blame him because of what I'd been doing before that conversation. I ended things with Marcus and all the other online conversations the day after our anniversary disaster. Deleted the accounts, blocked everyone, tried to clean the slate. But the guilt of those conversations eats at me, especially now. Because maybe this is karma. Maybe I deserve to be in this sexless marriage I created, caught between the secret betrayal James doesn't know about and the honest criticism he can't forgive. The sexual frustration now is somehow worse than before. At least before I had the bad sex. Now I have nothing, just the memory of those online conversations that made me feel wanted, and the growing resentment toward my husband who's playing the long game of martyrdom. I tried to initiate 2 months into the freeze. Wore the lingerie that had been gathering dust, created a romantic atmosphere, the whole thing. James came into the bedroom, saw what I'd set up and said, "I appreciate the effort, but I don't want you to feel obligated to be intimate with someone you find boring. That wouldn't be fair to either of us." I actually cried. Told him I didn't find him boring, I found our routine boring, that there was a difference. He just nodded like he was humoring me and went to sleep in the guest room that night. He's been sleeping there ever since. My sister says I should insist on couples counseling. I've suggested it 3 times. James says, "If that's what you need, I support you going to therapy, but I'm comfortable with where things are right now. I'm respecting your stated boundaries about our physical relationship." What boundaries? I never said I didn't want to have sex with him. I said I wanted different sex, better sex, more engaged sex. But he's twisted it into this thing where he's the respectful husband honoring my wishes while I'm the ungrateful wife who rejected him. The mindfuck of it all is driving me insane. Some days I wonder if I'm the one misinterpreting everything. Maybe he's genuinely hurt, and this is his honest response, not manipulation. Maybe I'm so deep in my own guilt about the emotional affairs that I'm projecting malice onto his actions. Maybe he really does think he's doing what I asked for. But then I remember the look in his eyes when he says that phrase, "I'm respecting your opinion." There's something cold in it, something that tells me he knows exactly what he's doing. I started having dreams about Marcus. Not even sexual dreams, just dreams where someone wanted me, where I felt desirable again. I woke up from one and caught myself reaching for my phone to recreate one of those accounts. I stopped myself, but barely. The temptation is there constantly now, stronger than before because at least before I had the bad sex to take the edge off. I'm stuck in this horrible limbo. I can't tell James about the online stuff because that would absolutely end our marriage. But I also can't fix our current problem because he won't engage with it honestly. And I can't leave because what would I even say? My husband is too respectful of my boundaries. Everyone would think I was crazy. 3 months into the freeze, I did something I'm not proud of. I went out with my friends, drank too much, and when a guy at the bar started flirting with me, I didn't shut it down immediately. I let it continue. I flirted back. I felt the rush of being wanted again. It didn't go beyond conversation, but I wanted it to. I thought about what it would be like to go home with him, to feel desired again, to have sex that meant something beyond scheduled maintenance. I didn't do it. I went home. But the fact that I seriously considered it terrified me. I'm becoming someone I don't recognize, someone whose needs have been denied so long that I'm willing to burn everything down just to feel wanted again. That night I tried one more time with James. Really tried, vulnerable and honest in a way I'd been too scared to be before. I told him I missed him, missed us, missed the intimacy we used to have even if it wasn't perfect. I told him I'd said things badly but that I loved him and wanted to fix this together. He listened quietly. When I finished, he said, "I hear that you're struggling, but I'm not going to pressure you into physical intimacy when you've made it clear you're not satisfied with what I have to offer. That would make me feel like I'm using you, and I respect you too much for that." I actually laughed. I couldn't help it. The absurdity of it, the perfectly constructed logic that made me the villain no matter what I did. He looked hurt by my laughter, which somehow made it worse. "You're punishing me," I said. "You know that's not what I meant, and you're using my words to punish me." "I'm not punishing you," he replied, and he sounded so sincere. "I'm protecting both of us from a sexual relationship where you're unsatisfied. You deserve better than boring sex, and I deserve a partner who actually wants me. Until we figure out what that looks like, this is healthier." How do you argue with that? How do you fight someone who's weaponized therapy language and boundary setting against you? I went back to those forums. Just to read, I told myself, just to feel less alone, but of course it didn't stop there. I created a new account, started commenting again. The rush of engagement of people validating my frustration was intoxicating. Within a week, Marcus found me. I don't know how, maybe he recognized my writing style or maybe it was coincidence, but he sent a message. "Is this you?" I should have blocked him. Instead, I responded. And we fell right back into it, the conversations, the flirting, the detailed discussions of what we'd do if we were together. But this time it felt different. This time I wasn't just escaping from bad sex. I was escaping from no sex, from this cold war my husband had initiated. Marcus started pushing to meet. "Just for coffee," he said, "just to talk in person." And I found myself considering it in a way I never had before. The isolation of my marriage, the constant rejection disguised as respect, the way James had turned our bedroom into a wasteland while maintaining his perfect husband routine everywhere else, it was breaking something fundamental in me. I made plans to meet Marcus. Set a date, picked a coffee shop 2 towns over where nobody would recognize me, told James I was meeting a college friend. He said, "Have fun," without looking up from his phone, and I felt absolutely nothing about lying to him. That's when I knew how far gone things were. The day before the planned meeting, James's mom called me. She wanted to talk woman to woman about what was going on. Apparently James had confided in her that we were going through a rough patch. My stomach dropped. What had he told her? She was kind about it, which somehow made it worse. She said James had mentioned that I'd expressed dissatisfaction with their intimate life, and he was trying to figure out how to handle it. She said he was really struggling, that he felt inadequate and didn't know how to fix it without making me feel pressured. He loves you so much, she said, but he's afraid that if he can't give you what you need, you'll leave him. He thinks maybe some space will help you both figure out if you really want to be together. I felt like I'd been punched. This whole time, I'd been so sure he was manipulating me, punishing me, playing games. But what if he was just as stuck as I was? What if his weaponized respect was actually his broken attempt at protecting himself from more rejection? I canceled on Marcus. Didn't explain, just said I couldn't do it. He got nasty, called me a tease, said I'd been leading him on. I blocked him and deleted the account again, and this time I told myself it had to be the last time. But I still haven't figured out how to fix things with James. Because even if his intentions are good, even if he's not deliberately manipulating me, the result is the same. We're trapped in this pattern where my honesty destroyed his confidence, and his response is destroying our marriage. I've been thinking about just confessing everything. Telling him about Marcus, about all the online conversations, about how close I came to actually cheating. Maybe if he knew the full extent of what I've done, it would shock us both out of this stalemate. Maybe shared honesty about our worst selves is what we need, but I know what would really happen. He'd be devastated. He'd probably leave. And part of me wonders if that's what I actually want, if I'm looking for him to make the decision I'm too cowardly to make myself. Last week, I overheard him on the phone with his best friend. He was in the garage, didn't know I was in the hallway. His friend was asking about us, and James said, "I don't know how to come back from knowing that your wife has been faking it for years. Like everything I thought was real wasn't. How do you rebuild from that?" His voice cracked. This man who's been so controlled, so calm, so perfectly reasonable with his respectful distance was breaking down to his friend about how inadequate I'd made him feel. I felt sick. Not just guilty, but genuinely nauseous. Because he was right. I had faked it for years, and then I dropped that bomb in the worst possible way. And instead of dealing with my own culpability, I'd spent months villainizing him in my head and seeking validation from strangers online. I went to our bedroom and opened the drawer where I'd kept that lingerie, all the things I'd bought trying to fix our sex life on my own without actually talking to him. Under the lingerie was a stack of notes. I'd forgotten about them. Love notes James had written me during our first year of marriage, little things he'd leave on my pillow or in my lunch or tucked into my purse. Every single one talked about how lucky he felt to have found me, how amazing our connection was, how he'd never felt so compatible with anyone. One of them specifically said, "Last night was incredible. I love how perfectly we fit together. I love you so much." Gotten that note after one of our typical 5-minute sessions that had left me frustrated and unsatisfied. And I'd read it and smiled and never corrected him. For years, I'd let him believe everything was perfect while I grew more and more resentful. Maybe I'm the villain of this story after all. I tried to talk to him that night. Really talk, not about fixing the sex but about fixing us. I told him I'd heard him on the phone, which he clearly didn't appreciate, but I pushed through. I said I understood why he felt the way he did, that I'd handled everything wrong from the beginning. "I should have told you sooner," I said. "Before I got so frustrated, before it all came out the wrong way. I let it build up and then I hurt you and I'm sorry." He looked at me for a long moment. "Are you sorry you said it, or are you sorry it's true?" "Both," I admitted. "I'm sorry I said it that way. But I'm also sorry that I wasn't honest sooner, that I let you think everything was great when I was struggling." "So you were struggling," he said, "for years and I had no idea, which means either I'm completely oblivious or you're really good at lying. Neither of those things makes me want to touch you right now." The bluntness shocked me. He's never cruel, never cutting, but this was both. "That's not fair," I said. "Isn't it?" He stood up, started packing. "You built our entire sexual relationship on lies. You let me think I was satisfying you when apparently I was boring you to death. And now you're upset that I don't want to keep doing the thing you hated. How is that not fair? Because you won't even try. I was crying now. You won't try to fix it. You won't try anything different. You just shut down completely and act like you're being so respectful when really you're just giving up on us. I'm giving up. His laugh was bitter. You gave up years ago. You just didn't tell me. He left, went to the guest room. I heard the door lock. I spent that night going through everything in my head, every decision that had led us here. The initial disappointment I'd ignored. The resentment I'd fed by comparing our sex life to what I imagined other couples had. The online conversations that had given me an escape instead of forcing me to deal with reality. The way I'd dropped the bomb on our anniversary, instead of choosing literally any other moment. The way I'd immediately villainized James's response, instead of trying to understand his pain. I'd been so focused on my own sexual frustration that I'd failed to see I was creating a different kind of intimacy problem. I'd built a wall between us brick by brick, every fake orgasm, every that was great I didn't mean, every night I stayed up late to avoid him, every secret conversation with Marcus. The sex was boring, that was true, but I'd made everything else boring too by refusing to be honest, by choosing resentment over communication, by seeking connection everywhere except with the man I'd married. Here's the thing nobody tells you about honesty in relationships: timing matters as much as truth. The right thing said at the wrong time, in the wrong way, with years of dishonesty behind it, can be more destructive than never saying it at all. I don't know how to fix this. I've apologized, I've explained, I've tried to initiate both conversations and intimacy. Nothing works. James has built his wall and he's comfortable behind it, and maybe he has every right to be there. My therapist, who I finally started seeing on my own since James won't do couples counseling, says I need to accept that I can't control his response. I can only control my own actions. I can be honest, vulnerable, and patient, but I can't force him to forgive me or to try to rebuild what we had. She also says, and this is the part that keeps me up at night, that I need to figure out if I'm trying to fix this marriage because I truly want James, or because I can't handle being the villain of my own story. I don't have an answer to that. Some days I miss him so much it physically hurts. Other days I fantasize about leaving, about finding someone who actually wants me in that desperate, passionate way I've been craving. Most days I just feel tired. It's been 4 months now. 4 months of sleeping in separate rooms, of polite roommate interactions, of James bringing me coffee and asking about my day while maintaining absolute physical distance. 4 months of him respecting my opinion while our marriage dies by inches. Last night I had a moment of clarity, or maybe it was just exhaustion. I went to the guest room and knocked. James opened the door looking wary. I need to tell you something, I said, and it might end our marriage. But I can't keep living with this secret between us. His face went pale. What? I almost told him. About Marcus, about the online affairs, about how close I came to actually cheating. The words were right there. But instead I said, I've been so focused on the sex that I forgot why we got married in the first place. And I think maybe I've been using the boring sex as an excuse to avoid dealing with bigger things I'm afraid of. Like real intimacy. Like being fully known by you. It wasn't the whole truth, but it was a truth. He stared at me. What are you saying? I'm saying I don't know if I want to fix our sex life because I want you or because I can't stand feeling rejected. I'm saying I might have sabotaged us on purpose because being wanted by you meant you could really see me, and that terrifies me. I'm saying I'm more fucked up than I thought, and I don't know how to untangle it all. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, that's the most honest thing you've said to me in years. I know. I don't know what to do with it. Neither do I. We stood there in the doorway, closer than we'd been in months, and for a moment I thought he might reach for me, but he didn't. He just nodded and said, thank you for telling me. Then he gently closed the door. That was 3 days ago. Things haven't changed. He still brings me coffee, still sleeps in the guest room, still maintains his respectful distance. But something shifted. Some small acknowledgement that we're both broken in ways that have nothing to do with sexual positions or foreplay techniques. I don't know if we'll fix this. I don't know if I've damaged things beyond repair. I don't know if James will ever touch me again, or if I'll spend the rest of my life in this sexless marriage I created, or if one of us will finally be brave enough to leave. What I do know is this: I called my husband boring in bed, and it was true. But the whole truth, the part I'm still afraid to fully admit, is that I'm boring too. Boring in my dishonesty, boring in my cowardice, boring in the way I'd rather destroy my marriage than risk real vulnerability. Everyone thinks James is punishing me with his respectful distance. Maybe he is. But maybe he's also just protecting himself from someone who spent years lying to his face, and then wonders why he doesn't trust her anymore. I'm telling this story because I need someone to understand that it's not as simple as everyone thinks. I'm not just the victim of my husband's passive-aggressive punishment. I'm not just the villain who crushed his confidence. I'm both and neither, trapped in a situation I created through 1,000 small dishonest choices, and now I'm living with the consequences while everyone around me picks sides without knowing the full story. The worst part isn't the sexless marriage. It's not even the guilt or the frustration or the loneliness. The worst part is knowing that if I'd just been honest from the start, if I'd had the courage to communicate before the resentment set in, we might have actually fixed this. We might have learned together, grown together, figured out how to satisfy each other. Instead, I protected his feelings at the expense of our intimacy, then destroyed both in one brutal, honest conversation, then betrayed him emotionally while he was trying to process the pain I'd caused. And now he's respecting my opinion by giving me exactly what I claimed to want: distance from our boring sex life. The irony would be funny if it didn't hurt so much. I check my phone sometimes, late at night, and think about creating another account. Not to talk to Marcus or anyone specific. Just to feel wanted again, to have someone treat me like I'm desirable, but I don't, because I know now that running to strangers for validation won't fix what's broken inside me. James and I are still married. We still live in the same house. We're still polite to each other. On paper, we're fine. In reality, we're ghosts haunting the life we used to have. Maybe one day one of us will be brave enough to either truly fight for this or truly let it go. Until then, we're stuck in this limbo, this halfway place between married and divorced, together and alone. And every morning when James brings me coffee, I wonder if he's staying because he loves me or because he's too good to leave. I wonder if I'm staying because I love him or because I'm too guilty to go. I wonder if there's even a difference anymore.